Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Again, I am Kaylee Batesman, the content director at SheCanCode, and today's episode is called From Catering to Code. We're going to delve into the extraordinary journey of Linda Scott, Business Development Director at Zuhlke, who went from the hospitality industry to the forefront of Scotland's tech leadership scene. We're lucky enough to have her here today to share her key lessons and wisdoms gained from a career that defies convention and embraces possibility. Welcome, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's quite exciting.
You actually have one of the most interesting backgrounds I think we've had on this podcast. So I am excited to share it with our ladies today. So can we kick off to set the scene with a little bit of context about you and your background, how you got into tech, just to let our ladies know a little bit about you to get started, please?
Well, this is probably quite a random story, actually, because I pretty much did fall into tech or walk into tech. It wasn't planned. I'd always been interested in it, and always, I suppose, interested in it for the reason as to what it could do. And when I started being interested in it, it was, you could tell it was the next big thing. So they got to tell you how old I am. So, and you're thinking, oh, I need to be involved in this, because I've always been obsessed with business and what was going to be the next big thing in business. It wasn't quite so much my fascination with tech, other than all these things were going to be the next big thing in business. So how I got my first role in what I suppose you would call in a sort of technical environment starts with a really random story, actually. I was speaking at a ladies' event, and I think it was a ladies' tech event, actually, so women in the tech space, and I was talking about women taking chances, and my story was around that I'd signed up to walk across the Sahara Desert, to do 100 miles across the Sahara Desert, to raise money for cervical cancer. And there was a lady in the audience that came up to me afterwards and said, what are you doing walking across the Sahara Desert? So I was explaining to her what I was doing and why I was doing it. And then she said, can I come? And I was like, well, yeah, if you would like to, yes, absolutely. So it was Melinda Matthews who had been hired to scale up CodeClan, which was an organization set up with government funding to train software developers and data analysis people. So we went across the Sahara Desert. We talked about many things, from giving birth to our career journeys, and I talked to her. She's much more experienced than me, in the world of business. And I talked about, being interested in tech and wanting to get into tech, but also expand in corporate, because I'd been in the catering industry for about 25 to 26 years, and I didn't know how to get into that space from where I was. I was actually at the Chamber of Commerce by then, but and I thought that's where I want to stay. I don't want to run my own business anymore. I want to branch out into a world that everyone else has been in for 10, 20 years. So how do I get at the table at the level I want to be? So she said she would help me with that. But when we came out of the desert, she said, you want a job? Because I need someone like you with your kind of passion and drive to help me scale CodeClan. So that was the first move to CodeClan, and I'd started to learn and understand the wording, the buzzwords. I mean, I really didn't know anything about it. So I ended up there for 4.5 years. I can't code or anything. I've had a go at it, and what I learned from coding was I'm definitely not any good at it. I didn't do any specific data courses, but I did learn to love data, using data, gathering data, and it just became a natural everyday life at CodeClan because of Melinda and the way she ran the business. So by default, that became an interest and a passion. And then I went to the Zuhlke's office opening in Edinburgh. Again, I think I was invited along by Scottish Government. I wasn't invited by them. Went there, met them, liked them, thought, wow, this is a really cool company, and it's really exciting that they're coming to Scotland. Didn't think anything of it. I wanted to get them on board as a partner for CodeClan, actually, and hope that they would hire individuals from CodeClan. And then it kind of flipped on its head, and they asked if I'd be interested in applying for their business development director for Scotland. And as they say, the rest is history, and I'm here, and it's been I think the best move I've ever made. So I love it.
Yeah, you have one of those lovely journeys that, which is why this podcast was started, to hear all of those squiggly career journeys into tech, and also that you said that you don't code and that you've tried it and you're no good at it, and that's absolutely fine as well, because we love our ladies to hear on here that you don't have to be technical, you don't have to code, you can fall into tech in any way, and that you can also have a broad range of careers when you do get into the tech industry, which is so great to hear. And because I was thinking, what inspired you to transition from, you're in hospitality and then you went into tech leadership? It sounds like a chance meeting of Melinda, and that kind of all, yeah, you walking across the Sahara. Is that
Every single thing I've done right back to the start is by chance.
yeah.
Nothing has been planned, absolutely nothing. So between the catering and code clan, I ended up being the CEO of West Lothian Chamber of Commerce. And again, that was by chance, because I was running my own business in the area. It was known as a relatively large business. I was invited to sit on the Chamber of Commerce's board. And I think within about 2 weeks, I was voted on as vice president. And then I think about another 2 weeks later, I ended up as interim CEO, because we had to let our current CEO go because the business was not working. It was running at a loss. And so I stepped in to try and stabilize things, and I did. So then the board were like, would you stay, you know, for 6 months to a year till it's really stabilized, and then we'll hire somebody. Because I had the catering company then, I'd had it for, I think by that point it was nearly 26, 27 years. And I was like, yes, I was fed up with it. I was kind of at that transition stage where I was like, really don't want to be doing this anymore. And I started asking myself, why am I doing this? And I was doing it because I was good at it, not because I enjoyed it. So I got rid of one piece of it and then went to the chamber, and then ended up staying at the chamber for 7 years, and got heavily involved in skills in the chamber, international trade, and just anything in business. So I was always looking at different areas and different opportunities and different things that would help businesses be successful. And that's when I started thinking about technology, and also it was more of a, where do I go next that's growth that I can go into without having, you know, a degree behind me or 20 years in the corporate space, you know. So who's going to have me, who's going to take that risk, and where do I want to be? So it just ended up, it was Code Clan by walking across the desert. So every one of them has been an absolute chance. It's the most asked question I think possible, is that everyone's always like, how did you get here, Linda? And quite honestly, at times I've not really got a clue. Everyone has just been like, first of all, I can't do that, I'm not skilled enough for that, surely they'll want somebody more experienced than me in that knows more than me than that. And then when you stop and think about it, you're like, actually no, I've got every bit of skill from what I've previously done that could be transitioned into that could be of value. And I think, I'm hoping, I didn't hire myself, but Zuhlke, that what I learned in the chamber and the Code Clan combined has made Zuhlke the perfect place for me to be. You know, I learned in the chamber to talk to lots of different businesses. I understand private sector, I understand public sector, and we sit in both that space in Zuhlke. At Code Clan, I learned to understand the tech. What does, you know, the different areas of technology, what's it used for, why is it used for it, you know, and the word probably more, what I know is the words, not the sort of detail behind it. I also started talking to businesses that use tech, that tech was important to them. I helped businesses understand why they needed to use tech to make it more important for them. So combine those two sorts of skill sets, it ended up making this the perfect move, you know. But it wasn't planned, and it wasn't a decision, you know.
And a lot of ladies worry as well. I mean, what you just said there about, you know, you took all those transferable skills with you. A lot of ladies in our community that have transitioned into tech later in their careers have had that worry of, I'm going to be new, I'm going to be junior again. And actually they forget that you're not new to work. You're not new to all of those things that you learn in work and all those soft skills, and just being in the world of work, you know, actually puts you ahead of a lot of graduates who don't even know how to navigate, you know, office politics and how to deal with all of those things that come with it. So you're right, it's not like you're just starting work again. You transition with so many valuable skills when you do come into tech. Why wouldn't companies give you a shot?
Absolutely. And I think I have authority or not authority, not quite sure the right word is there to say this, because I was in the Chamber of Commerce for so long and I've dealt with so many different types of businesses, you know, just hundreds of different types of businesses in almost every sector you could possibly imagine, is that tech to me is the most diverse in any of the sectors.
Yeah.
And also, to be honest, I think the best sentence out there is almost every business is a tech business now. There's no such thing as a business that doesn't have technology in it in some aspect, or should have. If you're going to last the long term in business right now, technology has to be at the heart of what you do. Using your data has to 100% be at the heart of what you do, or you're going to struggle to stand the test of time, because everything about you is going to be about that. But actual, real, born from the heart technology companies know they need every aspect of cognitive thinking and diverse thinking at the table to make it work. They know and get it, that a business cannot run by pure techies at the table themselves. They get it, they understand it, they welcome other thinking to the table, whereas other industries kind of be a bit more closed. Well, you don't know X, and you haven't done X, you can't sit at our table. Tech companies, you know, real bred tech companies, they like, we need you at the table because we know we don't think like that. You know, we think this way, and we need someone to think that way and that way and that way. And, you know, and Zuhlke in particular, there's many people in that organization that haven't come from a tech background, but they're really, really good at what they do in that space, you know. And it needs every kind of knowledge at the table to make it work.
Definitely. And
yeah,
for yourself, when you did get into tech, your career really took off, and your career progression, it went quite fast. And I know that you had previously said to us that you didn't like networking, but actually you put a lot of that progression down to the fact that you learned to network, and that really fast forwarded your career, and that you became the networking queen. So can you share some practical tips for building meaningful professional relationships, and how you transformed your approach to networking from somebody that didn't like networking through to, you know, the networking queen, as it was coined?
Yeah, I know, people are like, God, you're here again, Linda. You'd go to an opening of an envelope. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's what you gotta do. So I just absolutely loved it, and I still do love it. People are like, you out again, but I just really enjoy it. I love meeting different people and speaking to different people. But yeah, when I started it, I used to be absolutely terrified. Do you know what? I can't remember why I started going out networking. I think I was genuinely, somebody said, you need to do this, look for more business. You know, I'd probably run the business for 20 odd years before I started doing that. But then when I look back now, I think it's always been networking, because it's who you know. People buy from people. So if you don't go out and meet people, they're not going to buy your services. And I remember being at this event, and I was about to leave, and a woman said to me, "You going?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't like this." You know, I said, "There's no business for me here." And she was like, "But that's not what networking's about." She said, "It's about making connections, making working friendships, you know, we're building up trust with individuals." She said, and this is the bit that really stuck with me. She said, you know, if you meet and you chat away to someone and you get on, you tell them about your business, she will, or they will then go and talk about your business. They might be out networking somewhere again, and they'll go, "Oh, I need somebody to do," at the time, catering. "Oh, I met a lady who did it last week." So you've almost got your own mini sales army out on your behalf that you don't even know is out there selling you. And the better you get at networking, and the more you hang out with other people that do network, they will constantly, you know, recommend you, introduce you, move you about. And when you're in that world, it just becomes part of what you do. So is what I used to sell to my own sales team is, go networking. Don't expect to get any wins out of it, because you're not going there to sell. And definitely don't sell. Don't ever go to networking events and sell. And we sell this. Somebody asks you what you do, then yes, this is what we do. But you want people to build trust from you, and you want to see them again and see them again. And you have to go regularly. You can't go once and go, I didn't sell anything from that. You have to keep going and keep going and keep going. And then, but also network in environments that is right for your market. You know, there's no point in going, you know, I still love the chamber, but don't go to the chamber events if you're looking to sell technology. You know, there are sectors that sit in that space, you know, as well. Engineering, you would go to the engineering networking associations, but going to those associated with the sector you're interested in, and don't go to sell, go to build relationships, and then these people will have your back for years. I still reach out to people I must have known now 15, 20 years now that will still pass business my way, or pass contacts my way, or introduce me to people. So if you do it right, you've got that support for a lifetime.
Yeah, and you're so right. It takes more than meeting somebody once. It takes several meetings, and I mean, that was such good advice as well for salespeople, to think you don't go to a networking event to sell. It is so different. It's different if we went to a lot of expo shows last year, and that's different. You're there to network, but also maybe meet some sales leads, or that is completely different than going to you know, a drinks evening and just meeting some people and seeing what they do, and also what, not always what you can get out of it, but what that, you know, just meeting that person and seeing what you can do for them, as you said, really builds trust, and that takes a lot of meetings, sometimes a lot of commitment. So
Yes.
but it also sounds like as well that you changed your frame of mind from, this is something that I didn't really like, through to, you just changed your mindset and thought, actually, you know, if I look at this differently, and I look at this as building trust with people, and that, as you said, that mini army as well, people that are talking about you when you don't even, when you're not even there, then sometimes if you change your mindset as to why you're at an event, or why you're going to an evening event, then you can grow to love it.
Yeah, I mean, I really grew to love it, and I think that's why I ended up at the chamber for so long, because I really enjoyed the aspect of, like, I enjoy listening to what other people are doing,
Yeah.
why they're doing it, what they're doing. It doesn't really matter. You can tell me about, you know, you might be a fisherman, you might be making t-shirts, you might be building ships. It doesn't really matter. I'll find it interesting. And then I also go, I love going, I know just the person you need to speak to. Like, I just, it just gives me a buzz. And then if I find that then progresses to something that actually works, then that's even better. Like, I used to love, like, I would run a chamber event, and then people would be busying away, and then 6 months later you're like, oh, I did a deal with that person that you introduced me to, got £500,000 from it, and you're like, what? Oh, wow, that actually worked, you know. So yeah, there's nothing better than feeling that you have helped that connection and put two people together that has led to something successful.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the changes that went on while you were at the West Lothian Chamber of Commerce. There were quite some transformations that happened there. What were some of the key strategies that you employed to drive those changes whilst you were there?
Yeah, well, yeah, there was a lot of very big changes when I started at West Lothian. I mean, it wasn't in a good place when I came on board. I mean, the president that brought me on board was a very nice man, James Wallace. But I was at the time, I think, I mean, off the top of my head, roughly there might have been 16 people on that board, all men. I was the only woman. I would say, at hazard a guess, and I don't know really, but I must have been 20 years younger than anybody else. And I very quickly realized, and that was one of the transitional periods for me, when I knew that anything was possible. I was probably had a lot less confidence then. And I remember sitting at the table thinking, a lot to bring to the table here. But I used to be terrified to speak up, but not anymore. London has changed women since those days. I was thinking, you know, I first of all was very daunted about the people sitting at the table, and then I realized I actually had a lot to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And our CEO at the time was not working out well. The chamber was not in a good place. And it wasn't working with the other chamber team there. So I was the one that instigated moving forward and making the changes there, that he would step down and leave the business, and that is where I ended up as interim CEO, because the board were like, well now what, you know, like what we're going to do now. So I'm like, well, I'll do it for a little bit. You know, the business in that place, it was running itself then, the catering business. So, and then I grew to love it, and yeah, I completely changed the board. They'd been there a long time. I remember I rewrote the whole Articles Constitution when they gave it to me. It was still on typewrite paper. That's how old it was.
Gosh.
So I remember sort of redoing that and rejigging. I just basically tore it down to the bones again and started again. And then the biggest strategy was, using partnerships and collaboration. Like, it was an organization that had no money in the bank, wasn't making any money. It was a bit of a mess. We really need to tear it all down and build it for nothing. And I did it by collaboration, you know, bringing in partners. I had a company like completely redo our website, and I gave them a partnership for the year. You know, they were, you know, on all our social media and all our marketing as our marketing partner. I did the same. I think it was a lawyer and an accountant, you know. We did all that, and it really, really worked. And then from there, we started to raise our brand awareness and who we were. The members started to slowly come in. The partnership, because I implemented that new partnership look. People are, oh, I want one of them. You know, I'd like to be a partner. And I'm like, okay, that's $5,000. So, and then it grew from there. But the overall strategy was, yeah, a big change at the start. Stripped it all down, redid it all. We rebranded it, website, remarketing, refeel, yeah, real change of offerings, but kept the core purpose behind it of what Chamber was for.
Yeah.
And grew it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you know, your progression into leadership happened really fast, and as you said, your experience as well of being the only woman on the board, all of this kind of really threw you in the deep end. It must have been quite a baptism of fire for you, but it sounds like you learned a hell of a lot along the way, incredibly fast paced. You mentioned something about being a buffer between the importance of being the buffer between your team and higher hierarchies. Can you elaborate on how you navigate how you kind of navigate your leadership role effectively and maintain team morale and productivity, and how you kind of why you think it's important that you're that buffer between your team and the hierarchies?
I think it's very important. And if you decide to go down that route into that leadership space, then that's your role. And this is my own personal opinion. It's not the same as everybody's, but if I'm the leader of a team, then I feel I'm very responsible for them. I don't take responsibility into the point that, you know, I'm stressed out that, you know, everything that they do sits for me. But then it does. I feel if my team is not delivering, I've either not got the right people in the team, which is my responsibility. If they're not delivering, they maybe don't understand what they need to do. That's my responsibility. Or they don't have the right tools. Again, that's my responsibility. Yeah. If the right people are there with the right tools in the right direction, they should be able to deliver their job. And then also, as hard as it sounds, if somebody is not coping with all these three things, then maybe for their own best interest, it's not right for them and they need to go. Or it's, you know, it's behavior and they need to let go. And then that's another aspect of leadership, that you should be able to step in and deal with these hard situations as and when you need to, because it affects the rest of your team. You know, if you have one bad apple in a barrel that's affecting the rest of your team, and you're not doing something with that bad apple, the rest of the barrel will go off. Then your whole team will be unhappy. But if they see that you have the strength and the power to deal with that problem as and when it comes along, then they respect you. But again, as a leader, you need to earn that respect. They need to learn to trust you. You know, trust is everything as well in a team. If you're a leader, your team must trust you. And if they do trust you, you know, they'll do whatever they need to do to get everything done right. You know, my teams know. Also, if I muck it up, I tell them I've mucked up. You know, so complete honesty and trust is what makes a team successful, makes leadership successful, I think.
Yeah. I love the fact that you mentioned there several times that all of those things are your responsibility, and if something is going wrong, it's your responsibility. I won't mention the company, but one of the worst teams I have been on is when your boss tries to throw the team under the bus when things are going wrong, that when they're backed into a corner, and instead of thinking, actually, what is it that we're doing as a team? What can I do better for everybody? Just kind of start pointing the finger and blaming, and it trickles down to a team that is not happy and does not trust their leader, does not trust the direction of the company and where it's going. So yeah, I think sometimes a leader that, like yourself, is just humble enough to take a step back and say, you know, actually, what is it that I'm doing, or the tools that we have, or the way that we're working, and that all of those things are your responsibility as the leader, rather than thinking, you know what, everybody else has got the problem.
Yes.
It's everyone else, not me.
It is, to me, it's common sense. If your team is not delivering, it's you that's built the team as a leader. It's you that's guiding the team. It's you that's directing the team. If you're telling everybody it's the wrong team, you're the one that's hired the wrong team. So you're responsible, you know. So, and sometimes you do make a mistake hiring the wrong person into that team, and it's your fault. And it's, you know, sometimes that wrong hire is not even that person's fault. It's you that's got it wrong picking the right person to fit into that team. And then how I used to take that higher up is, you know, when I was on a board meeting or in front of the CEO, if my team was not delivering and I got a bollocking for it, like that's where the buffer used to come in. I didn't take that back to them. It was like, right, okay, this is not working, guys. What are we going to do to fix this? What is broken? Or if what was coming from above was not right, I was strong enough to go, no, I'm sorry, that's not right. We have done A, B, C, D. And I always used to have everything very well documented so that you could prove in black and white that you were doing what you said you were doing. So that's, I always had my information, shall we say, to block what was coming from above, that it didn't affect my team, as give them, they would be affected as little as possible, should we say. Into what was coming from above. It wasn't always smooth sailing, and it would filter through and they would feel it, but what they always said, they always felt safe that I was there, you know, and I was doing my best to protect what was going on, you know. So
and really set you up as well for when you move to Zuhlke and take all those things with you, that you're ready for that. And certain cultures as well have are really suited for certain team leaders, that, as you said, you know, teams need to feel safe for a business to be successful. So you know, you learned all of that and brought it over to Zuhlke when you were ready, and because you had quite a squiggly, or as we call a squiggly career path, quite an unconventional career path. Do you have any advice for individuals that are looking to do something similar, take an unconventional career path, and make that transition, especially for those of our listeners that perhaps don't have a traditional academic background?
I suppose the advice I would give, looking back, that people that have an unconventional background, is just believe in yourself and your capabilities. Like, stop when someone asks you to do something and you think, I can't do that. Stop and take stock of what it actually you can do. Like, read between the lines of the possibility there. That yeah, I can actually do that. And sometimes it's absolutely terrifying. You do have to take a jump, you know, a real jump. I've spoken at a couple of ladies' lunches, and I've kind of used the analogy that for me, every change that I have made has been like standing at the top of the cliff about to make a bungee jump. And you're absolutely terrified. There's not one move I've made where I've not been terrified, thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this, like I genuinely can't do this, like what the hell. And then you jump and you're like, oh, it's all right, actually. This is quite good. In fact, it's quite fun. I've actually had a really good time. But every
the string didn't snap, all was fine.
no, it's fine, absolutely fine. I mean, there's the odd time the bungee jump might snap, but it's not very often. Thankfully, it's not very often. But every time I've moved, it's been the right move. But every time before the move, I've thought, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't do this. This is absolutely crazy. But also, what has led to all these opportunities goes back to the networking. If I did, none of these have been through applying for jobs online or seen a job or thinking I'm going to go after that job. It's been out by people that I have met every single time. And I know everybody else won't be the same, but to some degree that will support and help. You know, it might even be you go to a networking event and go, oh, I know they're hiring for such and such in such and such. If you're not out and about, you won't hear about it. So really, networking is the key. Having complete faith in your skill set. Skill sets are massively transferable. That's what Code Clan was all about. That was all retrainers. You know, these are people, we retrained people in Code Clan to go into tech that had been ballet dancers, taxi drivers, lawyers, scientists, I mean, if you name a career, we've probably retrained them into the world of tech, because there's so many transferable skills into the world of tech, because you
Yeah.
need all the skills. It's as simple as that.
And I love hearing, we love those on the podcast, that
Yeah.
you're right. There was a lady the other day, she used to brew her own beer and she fell
Yeah.
into tech. And then we have sometimes on our live webinars, we've had a lady that was a hairdresser and she was like, I never thought I'd retrain to come into tech. And we love hearing that because it just encourages more people to think, actually, you can do it at any time,
Yeah.
and bring skills from anywhere to fall into the tech industry. And what a great career move.
Totally. I mean, the other thing that I've learned recently, and I talk about this from time to time as well, is really think about what it is in your job that makes you happy. And go for that aspect over and above everything else. What gives you passion? What gets you up in the morning to move into there? What do you want to be part of? Like, I had a really awkward conversation, well, maybe a year or so ago now, when I had applied for a CEO role that I didn't get. And because I'd been a CEO for so long, had my own business, was the CEO of the chamber, and then ended up the CMO, always in the exec team. And I thought the next stage up for me is at like a national CEO role at C-suite level. And then when I was applying for I think I applied for 2 and I didn't get them. And then someone said to me, why do you want to be CEO? Do you know what? I couldn't answer that question. Like, I couldn't genuinely answer that question. But what we whittled down to was that I loved selling. I loved a big win. I loved being out speaking to people, you know. I loved fixing problems. I liked, making businesses better. And we came to the conclusion that really what I'm really, really good at is being a sales director, you know.
Yeah.
Because do I want to worry about the VAT return and the tax return? No, it's my worst nightmare. So so like, actually focusing on what really got me out of bed and made me happy is what guided down. And then I realized that, I don't know if this is the right thing for this podcast or not, but for me, especially in that leadership space, was to really be careful that ego wasn't driving me where I was going.
Yes.
Yeah, that it wasn't ego deciding my career path, that I was deciding that myself. So bungee jumping and ego control are the 2 things that I think have sort of helped get me where I am today. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think that there are a lot of ladies and men who follow the wrong career path because of their ego might get in the way, and as well, they might want the job title, but as you said, do you want to worry about those things? So, and actually you're more excited about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I had a similar conversation recently about with a lady about you reach that fork in your career as well, where you decide whether or not you even want to manage people, or you just want to keep going on, not being a lone wolf, but doing your own thing, and you're responsible for your own work, because it's also quite a decision to think, do I want to look after other people? But it's quite natural to think, you know what, I have to progress, and the only way to progress is I have to become a team leader. I have to be responsible for individuals, and they can be very unpredictable. And actually, it's not what I wanted to do. But it's what other people think you should be doing.
Exactly.
As you
And I
progress.
think that's where tech comes, like the tech industry in particular, comes back into that conversation. Is you can choose your path in the tech world, in what you're able to do, because there are so many pathways you can take. You don't have to be a software developer. You don't have to be a data scientist. You don't have to be the CEO to have a good job. There are many. You don't have to be a people leader if you don't want to be. There's many different roles. So many roles. It's like being in a sweetie shop. You really get into it and look into it, that can go, that suits you in the direction that you really, really want to do. So, and that's why I think a lot of people do use it as a career change. So like that, this is really, really not what I want to do. I really, really want to go and solve problems. I'm going to go down there, or I really want to help make a robot, or build a drone, or whatever world you go into in the world of tech. It's the opportunities are there in abundance.
Yeah, definitely. And you've mentioned you encountered quite a few challenges and successes as well along the way. Is there a particular moment or experience that significantly shaped your leadership philosophy and approach? Is there something that really stands out for you?
That's a really, really good point there. I think what really, there's probably a couple of stages. The chamber was probably the first turning point for me when I realized I had a voice, that I actually had something decent to say. And really, unless you're being rude and cheeky, people need to speak up a little bit more. And sometimes if you do speak up, you'll be surprised if you listen. A lot of people, like I've been at a lot of meetings where I've thought, speak up, you know. So, and
Yeah.
it's the people that do have the guts to actually speak up that can actually make a change and make things happen differently. But you also need to check that as well. You know, you don't want to go mad, you know, being a pain. But
Yeah, you have to check yourself sometimes.
just check yourself. But actually logically really thinking, I've got a good idea here that could potentially help. You know, be willing to take, you know, no, that's not a good idea, and sit back and be quiet, don't argue about it, but speaking up. So that was a turning point for me at the chamber. I remember sitting at the boardroom table, not saying a word, thinking, I have a lot to bring to the table here. And from there, I really grew in that chamber space and that leadership space in the chamber, a leadership in the space of not so much a big team, but a leadership for other businesses, you know, in politics, and you know, trying to support businesses in different aspects of business growth. And then I sort of, the people management grew in Code Clan, when we very much grew into a very, and I suppose developed I'm sure lots of people do the same as me, it's not unique, but what worked for me in managing people. And hopefully I'm still in touch with a lot of my team, so I'm presuming they did like me in the long term. Is that I felt like it worked, and I had a happyish team. I had a happy team, I think, you know, and that was a nice feeling. I enjoyed that. Enjoyed having a team that were happy, that I could protect and I could help develop, get them to the next stage and the next stage. I really enjoyed that. So that's probably the 2 points: chamber, Code Clan, leading a business in the chamber, and then Code Clan leading a team.
Yeah,
the 2 turning points for me that I feel I've cemented that who I am today.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of the future, looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of leadership in the tech industry? And do you believe that unconventional career paths will play a role in shaping that future?
Absolutely. I think the tech scene is already ahead in that space on conventional career paths, as you said, you know, that it's known as an industry for career changers, the tech world. And I don't know many other industries that's actually like that I can think of. Maybe catering, but it's not quite the same as tech, but they've probably started on that path, you know, a number of years back. And I think that will only progress because they're learning more and more that it takes a diverse team to get where they need to go. And the world of tech is only going to get bigger and bigger. It's the future, whether we like it or not. So we need to be all on board to make sure we get the best from it. And it's a good technology experience, not a bad. And there's a lot of things coming our way that could take us on the wrong path. So we need to make sure that people are there to keep it right. So yes, and what was the other point to that?
What do you envision for the future of leadership in the tech industry?
Again, I sound like I am really blowing their trumpet, but I totally believe it. Like, as someone that's come from so many other industries, I absolutely love this space, and I will never leave it unless I'm kicked out, which hopefully I'm not. Is that I think they're already leading the way in leadership. You know, it's not a dogmatic leadership space, tech. It's again, Zuhlke, it's their servant-led organization. There's some people that have been around a very long time, very knowledgeable in Zuhlke, but you never feel like you're in the room with somebody that's, you know, the big global boss, you know, or group boss. They lead from the back. They like their leaders to you're given a lot of autonomy. And I think that's the way forward in the leadership front. Again, give people the right tools, give them the right direction, and then let them get on in that space. But the days of shouting and bawling and, you know, being dogmatic and blaming your team, I think those days are dwindling out in the tech space. I would hope in the space that I've been in, I can see that changing, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We are almost out of time, and I wanted to ask you, out of curiosity, from catering all the way through to Zuhlke, is there something that you wish somebody had told you when you got started? Is there a piece of advice that you would like to share with our listeners, and something you wish somebody had told you before you got started, in your career?
That's quite a hard one, because everything that I've done I've really, really enjoyed, and there's been a reason behind it that has got me to where I am today. Like, I feel like I've been on a journey to where I am today, and every part of it's been needed. I mean, even when I had the catering, a part of that, because there was different sections, did go into liquidation, but I learned so much from that. Like, I learned, you know, like that, if something's not working, fix it or remove it. It was a hard way to learn, but it's probably the best way to learn. I think it goes back to my main learning, which I spoke about last week when I was at this lunch. I went into business very young because I had a passion for business. I always thought my passion was business. And I interpreted that to be that I had to be an entrepreneur, that I had to be the one that founded a business, grow the business, become the multi-millionaire person. After 20 odd years of the business, which people say you did really well to keep a business going for 25 years. I did, but it was bloody hard work. I'm much happier scaling someone else's business. I'm not what I would call in the tech industry a founder. I find it difficult to come up with that idea that's going to be the next big thing. That's hard for me. Whereas I spent 20 odd years beating myself up that I couldn't find that thing that made me a multimillionaire. To find my role probably was always in a company that I would help that company scale to become a multi-million pound business. And I'm good at that, right? You know, and I wish I'd learned that years ago.
Yeah.
To let things go if you're really slogging away at something and it's not quite working out. Just maybe stop and have a little look and think as to why it is it's not working out. And again, that comes back to ego. It comes back to ego. I should have let that go a long time ago. So letting go of ego, of what you think of something, and really sitting back and deciding what it is that you really, really want to do is probably the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And brilliant advice to share with our ladies. There are probably a lot of our listeners who are also beating themselves over the head about something and listening into this and
Let it
thinking, yep,
go.
I'm that person. So it's lovely advice to end it on, because we are already out of time. So Linda, thank you so much for sharing your story today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much. Just a pleasure. I enjoyed it. I can talk all day.
Good. We'll have you back. And to everybody listening, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.